Hi, my name's Neill Thew from Crew Leader Development, and in this Crew Short we're going to look at how to spot an adaptive challenge, how to tell if you have one. Now, if you've watched the previous video in this series on what is an adaptive challenge, one of the things we were saying there is that most failures of leadership are failures of diagnosis, and one of the key failures of diagnosis is leaders assuming that an adaptive challenge is a technical problem. And the reason that's important is that technical problems can be solved by expertise and authority and by edict, by imposing a solution which everyone's expected to follow, but adaptive challenges can't. Adaptive challenges require development and adaptation of all stakeholders involved with the challenge, and they involve addressing values, beliefs and behaviours. So it's a very different kind of problem, and it's a very different kind of solution. So it's really important to be able to see when you're facing an adaptive challenge. And we think there are 6 typical signs which, if you're noticing these, would tend to suggest that what you're facing is an adaptive challenge, not a technical problem. So the first is that the ways in which you've been doing things for some time are increasingly becoming less fit for purpose. So something which worked really well once may not be broken now, but it doesn't work as well in the environment in which you find yourself now as it did in the environment for which it was originally designed. The second thing that you'll notice is conflicts around values. Sometimes you notice within individuals that some people are clinging to values very rigidly and very inflexibly, whilst other people seem quite turned around and confused about the values of the organisation. But more specifically, what you tend to notice is if there's a gap between the stated or the espoused values of the organisation and the values of the organisation as they're being lived. And very often you'll notice that if there is that gap, people who've perceived that gap are going to be feeling quite disenfranchised, disenchanted, or often cynical about what they're seeing. The third indicator that you have an adaptive challenge is if you see a rising tide of unresolved conflict within the organisation, specifically conflict about what's going on, what's at the root of the problems that we're facing, and what do we think we ought to do in order to make progress. The fourth thing that you might notice is a rising tide of fear or anxiety. People get very anxious in the face of change, but specifically what people are anxious about isn't the change itself, it's the loss or the expectation of loss that they think the change is going to bring them. So you'll notice a kind of a resistance to change, a resistance to things altering, and it's based on fear of losses. I think these last two are often the ones that for me are the clearest signs. So there's the head in the sand, the work avoidance syndrome. People are aware that there are some serious challenges that need to be faced, and then they become the elephant in the room. They become the thing that everyone knows is going on, but nobody's really prepared to talk about. And people engage in huge amounts of work avoidance to avoid naming and, more importantly, addressing the most important thing that needs to be addressed. So people will get very involved in peripheral projects, doing other kinds of things, and in trying very, very hard to look in the opposite direction from the direction in which the problem lies. The other thing that for me is a very clear sign of an adaptive challenge is character assassination. So this can manifest in 2 different ways mainly. Either the person who actually names the challenge gets assassinated, or the person who tries to lead on and make progress on the challenge gets assassinated because they're trying to bring to the organisation's attention something that the organisation is still finding overwhelming and doesn't want looking at. Or the other thing is that issues, generally speaking, get personalised. So people are being scapegoated or people are being criticised, and instead of working on the issue and seeing this as a piece of work that needs to be done, it's made personal around individuals instead. So if you're seeing one or more of these signs, so working down the columns just to remind ourselves, things that used to work well aren't working as well now. There's a gap between the espoused values and the values that people within the organisation, and customers indeed, are experiencing. There's a rising tide of conflict, and then going into the second column, people are experiencing fear and anxiety about change and the expectation of loss. There's work avoidance taking place and people are sticking their heads in the sand and not naming the elephant in the room. Or there's character assassination, either of the person who does name the elephant in the room, or issues are being personalised rather than being dealt with as issues per se. All of these are signs that you're facing an adaptive challenge, you're not facing a technical problem where expertise will be able to solve the problem for you. So if that resonates for you, and particularly if more than one of those resonate for you, I'd really invite you to think about actually what kind of a problem are we facing here, because you may want to think about the fact that I think you're probably in an adaptive challenge. So if you'd like to talk about this more, we always love contact. So please feel free at any time to contact either myself, Neill at crewleaderdevelopment.com, or my partner Trevor at crewleaderdevelopment.com. On our website, which is crewleaderdevelopment.com, you'll find further resources relating to adaptive leadership and the work we do in immunity to change coaching, which is about helping people develop capacity to face adaptive challenges. And we'd be delighted at any point to have a conversation with you about ways in which we may be able to be of service to you in helping you work on your current adaptive challenges. Thank you.